I met Gerry many, many years ago and did some work for FISC, which is the Fighter Institution Support and Training, an organization he founded to help retired boxers. After working on this, he became a client of mine. He's a resident of Fenway, New Jersey, with his wife Jennifer and the 3 children. In his youth, he went on to become a Golden Glove winner in New York, on to one of the richest purse in fighting with Larry Holmes. They went from foes to friends with them, and today they still stay together doing charitable events together. Also, he has appeared in several movies and TV shows. Now, today, Gerry lends his support to various charities that is often sought out to tell his story. He's a vocal advocate speaking against drug and alcohol abuse, domestic violence. He is also an author. His book is Gentleman Gerry, a contender in the ring and a champion in recovery. In his spare time, which I don't know how he has any, he enjoys golf and teaching boxers. He has offered many times to teach my daughter, who's 38 years old, to box. Well, she is an amateur boxer. She has 2 bouts. And today she teaches boxing at a local gym. There are many stories about him, but they all agree on one thing. He's a gentleman. I'm sure you will enjoy his stories. Gerry?
Cooney's going to try to punch himself out. Cooney is a converted southpaw. That left hook, the big punch, and he's getting it in. Cooney, as you saw the tail of the tape, at 6'5", and Lyle at 6'3 and a half. Cooney's come right out at Lyle. There's the left to the body. And the uppercut by Cooney, who has been very impressive. The right hand, and Lyle in trouble. Lyle in big trouble here in round 1. Cooney looking to put him away. Cooney landing with lefts and rights. Can Lyle hang on? 35 seconds left, round 1. Another left uppercut.
Cooney on the left. The tactics of Ken Norton in the early rounds will be interesting to say the least. Whether he decides to pace himself, whether he decides to go after the #1 challenger. 10 rounds, 3 knockdown rule is in effect. The bell cannot save either man. A right hand buckled the knees of Norton by Gerry Cooney. First punch of the fight buckled Norton's knees. Left hand to the stomach, and another right hand to the side of the head of Norton, who stands on the ropes. Left hand to the heart by Cooney. Norton bangs away now at Cooney in Norton's corner. And another left hand scores it again. The legs of Norton wobble. Norton is hurt in his own corner. Cooney trying to measure him. Misses 2 uppercuts, but scores with combinations of left stands Norton straight up. Norton is about to drop. Norton is on his knees and finally slumps in the corner. He is not going to get up from this. The fight is over in 54 seconds. Once more. And Victor Valley right in the ear of the challenger, Gerry Cooney. You heard Valley say you got a hook to the chin and go with the right hand to the kidneys. Holmes Again, flat-footed combination is a good left hand. And now Cooney dances in front of him and mocks Larry Holmes as if to say, I am not hurt. And again, a punch that was a little bit low thrown by Cooney. A right hand missed, and Holmes backs out of there. Cooney really the aggressor. A right hand to the head that time by Cooney, and a left to the head of Larry Holmes as Cooney comes alive here. Holmes then is back to the ropes.
You notice how aggressive Cooney became because there was 2 points taken away from Gerry Cooney for that low blow.
And that could be significant in a fight that is close. Holmes goes flat-footed again. Remember, he has done the most damage when he's been up on his toes. Holmes took a right hand that time from Cooney, and now ties him up.
That was a good right hand, Bird, because it landed very solidly.
It's not any one punch that hurts, but it's a combination of all of them that do. Another right hand from Cooney. There's a right to the body, and a left hand was low, and Holmes comes back with an uppercut that goes right on the chin of Gerry Cooney. And another right hand. That was blocked in large part by the gloves of Cooney. This is the 10th round. Holmes seemingly has been in control of the fight, but Cooney has not gone away, and he has been the aggressor. And right now, I think you might have to say that Cooney is the harder puncher.
Yes, Cooney still looks very strong. Earlier I said that Cooney didn't have that much sting on his punches, but now he seems to be refreshed, a new fighter.
That left hand was a little bit short, as Larry Holmes has stayed flat-footed, and of course that could always be an indication that a man could be getting tired.
Well, Holmes could very well be tired, but you know, Bert, I feel that Larry's trying to make him punch himself out.
Cooney forcing the action, and Holmes is providing a stationary target. There's a right hand by Holmes. And another right hand, and now Cooney reels into the corner.
I think Larry put a little trick on Cooney.
And a left hand scores by Holmes, and a right. And another right hand by Larry Holmes. That right hand becoming very effective. It has been his best punch. There's another. And a left hand and a right behind it. All right on the face of Gerry Cooney.
Both of these guys taking big punches from each other.
And standing toe-to-toe now. And Holmes with a right hand caught largely by the glove. So was that one. Cooney comes back with a left and a right of his own. I would think this position is where Cooney really wants to be, right on his man. That's where he is the most effective. There's another right hand by Holmes. It keeps Cooney off of him, and yet another as we come to the end of the 10th round. Combination by Holmes, and a left hand by Cooney at the bell.
Hi, everybody. It's great here to be. It's great to be here with you today and to learn a little bit about your organization and what's going on, and to tell you a little bit about me and what happened with me in my life. And I've had a great life. You know, I've always helped people. I go to an orphanage once a week for the last 15 years, working with kids who are struggling, and every kind of charity you can imagine. We're blessed. A lot of celebrities. You gonna make me? See, okay. I'm sorry about that, folks. So this works here. So it works.
Yeah.
All right. Let me just. The last guy was a little short.
I'll just bend. It's a push next. Oh yeah, has to go higher.
How's that? Okay, well, listen, again, let me just start off by saying my name is Gerry. I'm an alcoholic. Oh, no, that's tomorrow. That's tomorrow. That's tomorrow's meeting. And I have a great life today, and I come here to talk to you about a little bit about, I got to keep putting myself out there. I can't sit down in the chair. I grew up in a rough, tough alcoholic family. My father was a big drunk, and he drank every day. And, you know, we kind of hid in our own spots. And my oldest brother left the house when he was 15. And a couple of years later, he wandered to a boxing gym. And when I was 15, I followed him. I love my brother. And I remember the first day I went to the gym. I had been hitting the heavy bag in the basement. I thought, man, I'm good. I'm good at this, right? And they put me in this little Italian guy, and he kicked my ass, right? Because I didn't get about breathing, and the guy was going to charge me. I was just hitting the heavy bag. And I went home, and I threw the gloves off and said, forget it. This is not for me. And a couple of days later, I went down in the basement, and I hit the bag again, realizing that the guy's going to put pressure on me, and I got to be aware, and I have to breathe. I got to breathe. If I don't breathe, the worst feeling in the world was being in there in the second round and you're tired as hell saying, where's the bell, right? So a couple of days I went back to the gym and I asked if I could box that kid again, and he couldn't do that to me again. And 6 months later, I went in to the New York State Golden Glove Championships and I won the middleweight title. I was 6'4", 160 pounds. You had to wet me down to see me, but I could punch. And I remember being in the semifinals of the Golden Gloves. I'm fighting L.O.B. Frazier. And back in the day, you'd have 10 bouts lined up in the back hallway. And the guy you fight was right across me. So as the fight would go out, you step down. When I'd be looking at that guy, L.B. Frazier was 25. He looked like Joe Frazier, right? I said, my God, I said to myself, if I can beat this guy, I deserve to go to the finals. And I went out that time. I hit him with a left hook on the chin, and he knocked him out cold. And I made it to the finals. I was a 9-1 underdog, and I wound up knocking that guy out. I have so many great stories about fights and people. I remember one time I was training in Palm Springs, California for the fight with Larry Holmes, who was a great champion, by the way. We're great friends. And I didn't have the experience back then to get in there with a guy like that, but it was put on my plate. I had to take it. So I'm in Palm Springs, California, and I'm training. And this guy comes with about 150. I had a outdoor training camp under a tent in Palm Springs, California, Canyon Club, right? And 150 people come with this guy. He was a Marine. He was 160-1 in fights, right? And they wanted to promote him, so they wanted to bring him to my camp to have him work with me, see how he looks, right? He was a scary-looking black man with black as hell, but he could fight, right? And so my trainer watches him the first day. The second day, he comes back. My trainer says, not today. He watched him. The third day, he said, okay, get dressed. So this guy, his name was Black Jesus or something. I don't know what he was called, but he gets into the ring with me, and there's 150 people there watching, and he comes out, and my trainer was refereeing, and I hit him with a left hook on the chin, and his ass was up in the air, and he was moaning. And slowly but surely, everybody left that day. And you know, how I started out, you know, I had from Long Island, Huntington, Long Island, and boxing was my way to express how I felt from growing up in my household, helped me express my anger. And then they put my picture in the paper. It seemed like after every fight in the Golden Gloves, I was on the back page of the Daily News. I remember being 16, right? And low self-esteem from growing up in an alcoholic family. I don't know if anybody's struggled with alcohol in their lives, but you don't feel great about yourself. And I was fighting this guy, Earl's Tripp, in the finals of the heavyweight division. And the next day, on the back page of the Daily News, it said, a trip to the canvas. And it showed Earl's Tripp laying flat on the canvas. And I got the knockout win, and I won the heavyweight title. So, and then obviously I fought on the United States team. I went to Europe. I had all knockouts over there. I came back, and they told me to stay in shape, that the Russians were bringing a team. And I was fighting the third-ranked Russian heavyweight champ. And obviously, I wasn't training too well because I didn't know there was a fight on. And 6 days before the fight, they called me and said that I was fighting the third-ranked Russian heavyweight champ. Did I want to fight? I said, oh, sure. So for 6 days, I ran my butt off. I was drinking Perrier, had some Brussels sprouts. I'd go to the garden, which I loved, Madison Square Garden. That was like my home club, right? And I get into the ring with this guy, and I wasn't in the greatest of shape. Obviously, I was not really training a lot during the summer. And I always knew that when the bell rang, you can come in my house, but when you come in my house, you're going to pay, right? And I hit this guy with a left hook and knock him out cold. Thank God, because I had to go in second round. He probably would have killed me, that guy, right? And I got invited to the finals of Olympic trials. My father was sick. I got a phone call. These are big regrets I had. I got invited to go to the finals of the Olympic trials in 1976. And that's where the top 8 guys from America go to Colorado Springs, and they fight it out for 2 weeks. And the top 2 guys go to the Olympics. I said, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to make it. My father's sick. I got to stay close to my family. I didn't like my father at all. My father was not a nice man. but I didn't believe in myself. And I tell kids today, you got to fight. You got to get the answers. You got to ask the right people to get all the information. You can be the best you can be. And I never went to the finals of the Olympics to make the team. And I sat home and watched it on television. And it's a big regret I had. And the other big regret I had was in 1981, May 11th, 1981, I'm fighting in Madison Square Garden. I'm fighting Kenny Norton. You saw the fight on the television there. I was sitting in my seat. I still remember every second of the fight. And I was in great shape. I believe I probably that night, I could have beat Larry Holmes for the championship. I was in that good of shape. And the bell rang and he came out and I hit him with the right hand. He kind of buckled a little bit, right? And that felt pretty good to me, right? And when you're a professional, when you hurt a guy like that, you say, well, let me give myself 30 seconds, open up on this guy. I've been thinking about opening up on a couple of you guys today too, bro. And so I spun him into the corner and I caught him in an uppercut and I seen his body go limp. And on all the 4 pages the next day in all the papers in New York, it said 4 punches from death. And I believed that was true. And it was kind of a scary moment. I still don't really like that fight, but it was better him than me, right? And so you would think that night, I would think, well, I'm going to fight Larry Holmes for the heavyweight championship of the world. I better get a good trainer, a nutritionist, a condition coach. I'm fighting for the heavyweight championship of the world. But I think what happened to me was that fear kicked in and that I started to drink and not take care of myself. And 13 months later, I get stopped by Larry Holmes in the 13th round. We had a great fight. I didn't like him very much. He didn't like me. There was a lot of racism going on back in that day. Not from him, not from me, but from the people outside. They made it into a racial fight. And I get stopped in the 13th round. I disappear for a while, and my career ends. In today's time, Larry Holmes and I would have had a rematch. The fight was that good, and I probably would have went back and took it serious. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. I've had a great life, a great career. I have a beautiful wife, beautiful family. I've been in minor league baseball. I promoted George Foreman, Roberto Duran. I've done so many different things. I got married. I stayed alone for a while, and I met this beautiful girl who I've been married to for 28 years. We got 2 great kids together. I have another son with another young woman who I made a mistake in my life, and all graduated college, a lot of hope, and a lot of love. And I get the opportunity to help people. Like I said, I go to an orphanage on Saturdays and I work with young kids who are either gang kids or trouble kids, just got out of jail, or they're lost, they don't know where they're going, and try and fill them up. I get them a lunch, I bring them juice, I bring them snacks to let them know that people love them, people care about them. And I teach them boxing to help build self-esteem. I have a gym in my home where I train probably 8 or 10 young men, a couple of older guys, and I build self-esteem and confidence and courage. All the things that was lacking in my life. How I ever got in the ring back in my day, I don't know. What, it's like I think about from when you grow up in a household with, you're told you're no good, you're a failure, you're never going to amount to anything. You don't have much self-esteem. And somehow from that, I was able to get in that ring, drive to the city every week and get into the ring and fight some of those scary guys. And they were scary too, right? And I won the Golden Gloves twice. I turned professional in 1977. I had 2 crazy managers that the only peace I made in, my father had passed, not that they would help me in any way. And I got this guy to watch this guy, and that's how I turned pro. I signed with Howard, same people who signed Howard Davis. I don't know if you remember that name. You guys are all probably too young to remember that name. He was the 1976 gold medal winner in the Olympics, and his mother was dying during the Olympics. He was going to leave, and she said, stay and fight. Not only did he win the gold medal, that kid, but he got the best fighter in the Olympics. And so I got a chance to travel and fight on his cards. And he was signed to CBS, and I got to fight on all those cards. And that's how I got a lot of experience. I got to know a lot of people. I got to be seen. And then, you know, as time went on, like I said, I remember fighting in Atlantic City. I'm fighting for $100,000, right? I was 21 or something like that. I was fighting Jimmy Young. He had won his last 9 fights. Nobody looked good against Jimmy Young. He really beat Foreman. He really beat Ali. He really beat Norton. Didn't get the decisions. And so I'm fighting him in Atlantic City on an all heavyweight card. And, you know, I loved the hook. And he was so aware of my hook that he was keeping his hand up here, but in the middle, it was wide open. I said, why not take a shot at that, right? So I hit him with a left uppercut, and I split him about 2 inches between his eyes, and he started bleeding profusely, and I almost passed out from that because I hate the sight of blood. Anyway, so we fought for a couple of rounds, and I really became well known that night. I stopped him in 4 rounds. I beat him up really good, and I learned a lot about the game that night. And that's the experience for us. Like, I go to a training camp and I got 4 or 5. Just think about this, right? You know, I get up at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I see you looking at me, stepping away from the thing. All right, you want to fight? I'll fight you right now. And you got 3 or 4 or 5 different sparring partners. Well, I'm in the ring with one of them. You got 4 guys watching me, right? And they're all finding weaknesses in me to try and get me. And that's how you get better. That's how you get stronger. So when I had all those knockouts early, I knocked out Jimmy Young. I knocked out Ron Lyle in my home in Long Island, Nassau Coliseum in the first round. Jimmy Young was in Atlantic City. I gained so much experience that night. And then I had to sit and wait because unfortunately for me, or fortunately, well, it was fortunate, I never signed with Don King because Don King was a fraud, a cheat, a thief, a crook, and many other names that we won't say here. I got to keep it clean, right? And he wouldn't give me any fights. So at the most important time of my career, when I needed to be fighting Jimmy Witherspoons and Greg Pages and all those other guys, he owned all those guys. And why did he want me to fight them when if I beat Holmes and got good enough to beat Holmes, he would lose the championship? And that's how the fight game was in that day. So I was a young kid. You do what you can do, right? And I knocked out Norton, and we had the biggest fight in the history. It was in every country in the world, almost, right? And $10 million a piece, right? And it really turned out to be 8.5 million, but give or take $1.5 million, right? It was still good. And I saved my money. Like I always knew. I grew up poor. I knew the rainy day was coming, right? I knew the rainy day was coming. I wasn't a big spender, and everybody wanted to give me everything. Here's my house, take my plane. You know, it was like, okay. And it turned out to be a downfall because I forgot what it was about getting up at 4:30 in the morning and getting out on the road and training. And I remember one time 2020 was filming me in the morning. I was up in Catskills, New York at the can't remember the name of the Parkers owned it, and there was icicles on my face. And somewheres we get distracted when you become more successful and more visible. People distract you. Come and do this commercial. Come over here, make this appearance. Do this, do that. The girls start looking at you like they never looked at you before, and that felt pretty good too, right? Look at him laughing now. That's son of a gun. And I got distracted, and so I'm here to tell you today that I was drinking, not taking care of myself. It was difficult to get fights. You know, like they wouldn't give me anybody to fight, so you start drinking. And I'm happy to tell you I'm here today. My last drink was April 21st, 1988. And I put down. Not to get distracted, but also want to mention a good friend of mine who came here with me today is Mark Jubilato. Get up and say hello, bro. Listen, he wants to fight me. I tell him, don't do it. Don't do it. Well, Mark Jubilato was a fullback at Penn State, successful career. He blew out his knee. And he wanted to find a place to go. Joe Frazier had a gym in Pennsylvania, and he wandered his way to the gym. And Joe Frazier couldn't pronounce his name, Jubilato. So he said, I'm going to call you Cooney. He was the only white guy in the gym, right? And he boxed with everybody. You know, I have a book, right? I love my story. I have a great story because today I'm here. I remember most things, unless you talk to my wife, I forget a lot of things. But I have a great life. And this guy, could you imagine? He went to a gym where he was the only white guy, and he trained with all this greatest fighters, Jimmy Youngs, Joe Frazier, all the fighters in the world. And one day he had an accident. He fell 30 feet and landed almost on his head fully. He comes from Pennsylvania, moves to Scotch Plains, where I live. And one day he walks into Mass and walks up. He has to go up to the front because he really can't focus right at this time. So he comes all the way up to the front. He's sitting, I'm about 8 feet down. He says, I must be dead. He says, that's Gerry Cooney, isn't he dead? To which I said, no. And we've been friends ever since. And I would love to read that book. You know, what a great life he had. And so that's just a little advertisement for my books over there, guys. Anyway, so I traveled the world. You know, I've been with Frank Sinatra. Bob Hope was a great friend of mine. I did an exhibition with Bob Hope. He did an amateur boxing when he was a kid. And when I'm training for Holmes, the Bob Hope special was coming up. So he came to my camp and we were going to do an exhibition. So he has gloves on. I had my gloves on. And so I faced him and I go like this. I feint him a little bit, right? And Bob Hope goes, and we had this laugh. And we became great friends, and we had a great exhibition. We stayed friends. He hunted me down when, in my wildest of days, when he was performing in Long Island. And I brought my mother, and we had a great time. And he brought me up to his home. Frank Sinatra. I met everybody. I went to a party once in Las Vegas before the Holmes fight. Everybody I ever wanted to meet in my whole life was there. You know, Sylvester Stallone, you know, my phone was shut off because I had to rest and train. So my phone calls would go to my trainer, Victor Valley, right? So Sylvester Stallone calls his room and says, hey, Victor, how you doing? It's Rocky. Hey. But my trainer said, come on, he says, who is this over there? Don't give me that shit. And it was Sylvester Stallone. And him and I got a chance to be on the cover of Time Life magazine. He stood on a milk crate about a foot ahead of me. And I just recently have a photograph from that time. And just recently, he came out with a new series on Netflix or Prime or something. And I got to go to his premiere, and we got a new picture 40 years later. He's a little bit tightened up a little bit. Oh, so please forgive me. And you know, I tell people, follow your dream. I tell the kids at the orphanage who don't have much hope to go to the post office, sort mail for the summer, get them to know you, get a job. Doesn't have to be forever. Do it for 5 years. You get a good salary, retirement, health insurance, something to get your foot in life. And you can only pray. I remember I go to prisons, I speak in prisons, and I asked one time, do you think I ever help anybody? She said, well, if you help one person, you change the lives of that whole family. And I've been living on that to this day. I put myself out there. I tell you my flaws. I tell you my mistakes, my fears, my aloneness, my low self-esteem at times. I mean, I've done a lot of work on myself. I've learned a lot about those things, and I've kind of been able to let them go, because life is not waiting for us, right? Like there's no more do-overs. And I still train a lot of people. I go to the gym. I stopped sparring. I have two new, I got a lot of problems. You guys want to hear? No, I'm just kidding. I have two new knees. I hurt my back. I tore my rotator cuff. Had my feelings hurt a couple of times. But we're here today. I mean, I got to listen to you guys. And listen, those guys that were singing, where are they? Could you raise your hand? Keep working on it, guys. Keep working. Oh, please forgive me. I think I have Tourette's. It's Tourette's, I think. But so what can I say? I got a great wife, a great family. I help people every day. I get off the phone sometimes and I think to myself, where did that come from? How did I say that to that person to help them get from here to there? And sometimes that's all it is. And we got three big guys, Mark, myself, and this other guy who's 320 pounds, and we go to mass in the morning. We take up the whole front row, right? But listen, what a gift we have. I get to go and listen to my God. I was telling somebody, like there's all these different gods. There's the Protestant, the Catholic, the Jewish, the Muslim, whatever it is. And I tell them, listen, I'm sure that when we go and we go up to the pearly gates, right? There's no like, okay, you go down that lane. Oh, no, you go that lane. You go over here. We got one God. And I want to get to know that God more. I've had a lot of, confusion about my father. My father he built a ring in the backyard. He wanted to be a fighter as a kid, but he went into the Merchant Marines and he never got a chance to. So he's my little kid, he's 17. Let me build a ring in the backyard and knock this kid around, right? So, I mean, I could have kicked his ass at 17, but I couldn't hit him. And I regretted that my whole life. And then years passed and I ran into some guy who did give him a beating. And he felt so bad about it. So maybe I was gifted by not doing that. And my children have never seen me drink. I love them. I tell them that every day. And this is a fight for life that we're in. And I had a health scare. And the doctor told me, oh, yeah, you have early stages of cancer. I said, what did you say? What? Because I've been Superman all my life. I could do anything. And at early stages of prostate cancer, we had to get 5 radiation shots. That's all. It went from 6'8" to 3'1". But when you first hear that, I pray to God, please God, keep me healthy, let me grow long. And then you get hit with that. It's like, what? Well, you do what's indicated. You turn the page and you get on with your life. It makes you really want to live. And that's why I come here too, to be with you, to let you know that, listen, this is, sometime it ends, right? So I want to put into it as much as I can, touch as many people as I can. And I've looked everybody over. I will fight anyone. And thank you. Thank you, guys. One second, Mark. 1 second. There's a program, bro. Oh, it's a program.
Hi, everybody. What Gerry didn't explain, and when I met him in the beginning was, his gift isn't as a boxer. His gift is a man who serves God and serves people. And that's the gift he's been given in life. And like today, many of you might think, oh, Gerry got up. We go to church every day at 8:30. Without failing, if one of us doesn't, along with our friend, we text and say we can't make it today for whatever reason. But you might think that all Gerry did today was he went to church and came here. He walked Ralphie at 6:30. But then what did you do? You probably had 2 meetings online this morning.
Yeah.
So he has 2 meetings, it's 2 Zoom meetings online. Like every morning he does that. He has Zoom meetings in Ireland like once a week, right? And he'll go home from here and he'll have a reading. Every readings today.
Yes.
He has readings online, so he's busy all day, every day. And so, and like coming here. And so I just think it's important to know that Gerry is a much bigger man than a boxer. The boxing was a secondary gift to what he does and he gives, and the example he sets for everybody, not just me. You don't got enough. But anyway, thank you.
First out of the box. Thank you so much. It's so inspirational. It's such a joy for us to have you come and visit us and give us the story, and all the wonderful messages that you have. But 2 questions. You can answer them if you like. You know, boxing is.
Take this one. I take this one.
Okay, that's fine. So, well, nobody needs to see me. Nobody needs to see me. They know what I look like.
Should be a part of it.
Okay, so boxing is such a part of American culture, and so we've seen a number of wonderful boxing movies. So let me just ask you, what's your take on any one of these 3? There's Raging Bull and $1 Million Baby with Hilary Swank.
Oh.
And of course, the Rocky franchise. We've heard about your encounter with, Stallone, but what is your opinion of these movies?
Okay. All right. So I want to say $1 Million Baby, Clint Eastwood. At that time, there wasn't really female boxing that much. Clint Eastwood directed that film, that was a real fighter, a man, what she went through, how she expressed herself. He was such a gifted guy, Clint Eastwood, to bring out Hilary Swank, and she did such a fantastic job. Now, I told you guys earlier I took a lot of shots. What was the other question? There's other great movies. Listen, Jake LaMotta was a friend of mine, right? And I loved him. We traveled all the time. We did a lot of things. Like one time we're making an appearance, and he said to me, "How much did you get, Gerry? How much did you get, Gerry?" I said, "I got 10,000. What? Because he didn't get 10,000. He was a great guy. And until some woman came out to me and said, I said, "Jake LaMotta, I love that guy." And she said to me, "What do you love about him? That he beats up women?" And I thought, whoa. But I never knew that part of him. He was a guy who fought Ray Robinson 6 or 7 times, twice in 3 weeks. Today, it takes 10 years to get that done. He fought Sugar Ray Robinson, the best welterweight, middleweight in history, twice in 3 weeks. And that's the guy he was. Rocky Graziano would never fight him. He told Rocky, let's fight, but he would never fight him. I have a picture with a big picture of Jake LaMotta and Ray Robinson, and on the top, Jake LaMotta wrote, "Ray, I never went down. I never went down." That's how tough it was. Jake LaMotta was so poor, he left a numbers runner who was dressed good for dead. He mugged him, robbed me, thought he killed him. He didn't see the guy. It kind of ruins his career. Then he's in the championship fight, and the guy walks into the dressing room. He had thought he had killed the guy because there was nothing in the paper. That's the kind of guy it was back in those days. It wasn't easy. And of course, Stallone, the first Rocky one, I went home the next morning. I broke an egg. I drank it just one time. And he's a good guy. He's a very talented guy. They wanted Paul Newman to do that role, but he would not give it up. And look what it did for him. So he did a great thing. The only thing that is that the film was about Chuck Wepner. And Chuck Webner settled on $100,000 for it, right? Now, I think they're up to Rocky 23, right? Chuck never got anything. He sued him once and got $1 million. So he got something out of it. But, you know, I don't think that's right. Next. Come on, handsome.
DJ.
Oh.
I won't tackle you.
What's your first name?
DJ.
DJ, all you're gonna hear is DJ, get up.
We've all noticed how good looking you are. And yeah. So the question is that well, either you have a good plastic surgeon or you're very good. So the question is that can you talk a little bit about I was before I retired an ear, nose, and throat doctor. So can you talk a little bit about injury to nose, ears, eyes, and jaws in boxing?
Sure.
Yeah.
That's great.
Thank you.
You're a nose doctor? Yeah. Where you been all my life? All right. So listen, that's a great story. So fighters, you know, there's a thing when the older fighters used to go like this all the time. You remember? Remember fighters did this all the time. You know where that was? Because their hands were up. They can protect themselves. Then the guys get tough guys and they keep their hands down. And obviously, you know, and it's a sad story for me today, but women are starting to do the same thing. And yeah, I had a cyst on my trachea. So I went to the doctor and he said, well, how about, he said, I had a bad deviated septum all my life. I broke my nose only once because I was a puncher. So I didn't take a lot of abuse. Just when I didn't take care of myself, I had to pay. And so I went to the doctor. I didn't know what it was. It was kind of scary, right? So he said, oh, it's this little cyst. He says, how about I take out the cyst and I fix your nose? I said, you got a deal. And then went to the doctor and he fixed up my no deviated septum. I can breathe. Everything's all good. So yeah, I think that fighters, some people wear it as a code of, you know, a code, like I'm a fighter. That's who I was. I never believed in that. You know, you're going to hit. I took shots. You know, I learned so much about the fight game. I had a great trainer and he told me to sit back in the pocket. Don't come in. You know, here I'm in the house. Here I'm looking at the house, right? It's safer to be looking at the house. But you have a tendency, Larry Holmes was a great right-hand puncher. So what I was trying to do is I was trying to get to the side and not get hit with it, but I'm walking right into it. So after you finish the game, you know, life was going so fast for me, you learn, sit back here, keep this hand up, use that jab, step off to the right. There's so many different, you know, things you can do to protect yourself. And when we're young and not really, you know, we just want to fight, you know, we don't really pay attention to the little things, and the little things are what saves your life. And yeah, you know, I snapped my tendon. I had to have it pulled out, and they had a pin sticking out of my hand. Stuff happens, you know. You get injuries, and we have to protect ourselves. What's that, broken jaw? No, I never got. My wife gave it to me almost one time. No, I never had it, but you know, you do it. Ali had it in the fight against Kenny Norton. There's a lot of guys that do suffer from it. And, you know, no, not me. Thank you, Doc. Who's next, my man? Come on, if we want to talk.
Ron Weinger.
Listen, two
Yeah.
questions.
Got to bring this down low. I don't know how true this is, but I heard
We'll see.
ages ago that Bruce Lee was once asked if he could beat Muhammad Ali, and his response was, "As long as he doesn't hit me." What do you think of cross-genre fights, either professional or exhibition? Do you have any opinion on that type of thing?
Great question. And, you know, there's a lot of stories when Ali boxed Inoki in Japan, right? A great champion. And Inoki, all he did was lay on the floor and kick Ali in the shins. And so obviously, they do a lot of cross fighting now. They have MMA. They really come into boxing because there's so much money to be made. And the problem with that is that you come into my world. You can't take me down. You can't wrestle my arm. You got to fight me. So it's like a no lose situation for most men. There's a big fight coming up soon is with Tyson Fury. Anybody know who that is? Two people. He's fighting a great UFC guy, but it's boxing. So the guy has a puncher's chance, but Tyson Fury is such a great fighter. Follow it. There's a great page on ESPN. It's called ESPN Boxing. It's a red thing. Put it on your phone once in a while. Look at a couple of stories. It's a great game. I mean, for a while, Don King ruined the game of boxing. Listen, can you pick it up? He ruined the game. He raped and robbed all the fighters, took the heart out of the game. He's gone now. And now you got guys like Top Rank, you got PBC, you got DAZN, all great fighters, and they're fighting each other. So try and come back to it because it's a beautiful sport. Who else?
Another one here.
Come on, my good man.
Way down. So two questions. One is just a simple one. I see you brought some books. Can we get autographed copies of your book? Great. So that's something you can do on the way out, guys. This second one is a peculiar question, but inspired by the Rocky movies, I guess. Did you ever get to be a friend, a close friend of any of the guys that you ever actually did a fight with? Fought in the ring?
Well, I mean, yes. So listen, you're training to fight somebody, right? For a year. The guy wants to knock you out. You think I'm, oh, hey, how you doing? I can't stand the guy, right? I put his picture on my heavy bag and I'm punching it every day, right? After the fight's over and you've gone through so much training and discipline and the press and aggravation and fear and all those emotions that are in front of you all the time. I'll tell you a quick story. So you're in the dressing room, right? I'm in Las Vegas. There was 35,000 people. They built a stadium in the back. So this happens for every fight that you're in. There's a knock on the door. And the door opens up and the guy says, Cooney, you're next. And the first thing that comes over is, oh, shit. And then you come out the door with your gloves on, the trainers, you're holding your arms, and it's it's empty, like corridor for about 100 yards, right? It's empty. There's no noise, nothing going on. And you're going down, your life is being passed before you, right? I got to get in, the bell's got to ring. I got to try this. Maybe I'll make this adjustment. Maybe I'll straighten this out. And then you get to the arena and you hear the roar of the crowd. And that's when magic happens. That's when you put it all together and you just can't wait for the bell to ring. And that's the gift about this game and all sports. I'm sure football players, you come out of the stadium and you hear that crowd. It's like, wow, it's magical. And that was the gift, one of the gifts. And that world, I'm going to tell you something. There's a world-class timing where I can see the opening, I can create it again and make the shot land, right? I can see your floor. I set you up for it again. I step right. When you go for it, I land the shots. That's world-class timing. That doesn't last a long time. Like, I have a friend of mine, Steve Ashford. He's a great wrestler, but he tore a couple of muscles. He was a 4-time national champion. He trained for the Olympics. And you get that one little injury. And something about that timing is not the same anymore. And you keep wanting to try to get it back, but unfortunately, you just can't. And so I tell the kids, pay attention. Don't drift away. Don't be distracting yourself. Stay focused on what you're doing because that timing there's nothing like it in the world. Nothing except for a wife.
Hey, Chair.
Yes, sir.
Tell men here who you talk to on the way here to talk. Do you want me to tell you?
No, I know. What do you think? I forget? So I haven't spoke to Larry Holmes in a while. We do a lot of things together. We're great friends. Even after that big racism and the problems, the fights, all that stuff, we became great friends. We traveled together. We make appearances. We just went to Europe for our 40th anniversary, and we had a great time. And unfortunately for Larry, all those, I watched him highlight films of the both of us, him and me. He had such great fights. The only problem is that during that process, you're taking shots once in a while. You get hit with a shot once in a while. You get knocked down, you get up, you get hit with a shot. He's early stages of dementia. All right. So his wife, he doesn't want anybody with him but his wife. And I tell Diane, I was on the phone with Diane today asking how he was, and is she getting any help to help support her, because it's very draining. And what happens is, a couple of years ago, I was at the Boxing Hall of Fame with Emil Griffith. You ever hear that name? Great fighter from the Virgin Islands. And we saw each other all the time. We hugged, we kissed, and all that stuff all that time. One day he had dementia, and he looked at me, he was cursing at me. And that's the sadness. Once you realize that I'm losing it, you get very angry. And I'm starting to see a little bit of that in Larry. Now, my wife told me, Gerry, listen, it's a sickness. That's not him. But I still just don't like it. And so I have to find a way. I spoke to his wife today about, let's us all get together and have dinner or lunch sometime soon. And she said, sure, we'll come to you. So there's some great restaurants around me, and I have to look past the things he's saying, because it's not him, right? And we're all probably going to be confronted with that at some place. I had a friend of mine, I loved him so much. I didn't see him for a couple of years. He's in the hospital. He didn't know who I was. And I cried. Anyway. You sure you want to fight me, bro?
Jim, come on up.
Watch out, bro. Oh, I had to go. You see that, bro?
You could probably knock me over with a deep
What
breath.
do you mean, problem? What do you mean, problem? Never bad.
So I really have enjoyed your presentation. It's been great. So I feel badly asking this question almost, but it may be on many people's minds, which is be careful, right? So, so it's about the influence of the mob in boxing, because that was certainly something that we saw back in the day. So I'd like to hear your thoughts.
You bet. Thank you. First, what came to mind was, so I grew up really bad. You know, I used to have to sit in the kitchen straight up while my father was eating. He'd fall asleep. There was a lot of abuse that went on that I really kind of, because he told me I was never going to make it. I wasn't going to be anybody. And I think I almost started drinking. So in case I did lose, it wasn't me. It wasn't at the core of me. What my father told me, it was because I didn't take care of myself, right? So I really used that for a lot of times during my life. And I just did a couple of big interviews on different shows. And I was able to say, it was me. I made the mistake. Yeah, I got dealt a hard set of cards, but I was the guy who didn't show up when I was supposed to be there, and I was supposed to make those points. So, and that was a big, a freeing up for me. I mean, I went and forgave my father, but it's still kind of, some ways you want to use it as an excuse. But as time goes on, I'm 67 now. I know I don't look it, but what are you talking about? They can hear that, huh, bro? So anyway, and the other thing was the mob you talked about, right? So, I mean, back in the day, Jake LaMotta had to lose in order to get a championship fight. You had to let them make the money, right? So in today's time, when I first turned pro back in 1977, people came to me and asked me, They didn't force me or push me. They asked me, would you mind if we get some guys on your card? And I said, to tell you the truth, I really don't want to be involved. They said, fine. So I never had a problem, anything like that. And if I do, I always tell them I know karate. Come on, who else?
Okay.
Come over here, bro. Camera's on. What's
Okay.
your picture? What's your best side?
I don't have a bad
Doesn't
side.
have to.
Who was the scariest person you ever fought? Not me.
Scariest person I ever fought. Well, I had some really big sparring partners, angry guys, but you break them down. You find a way to land that shot and you take charge. Like, see, if I give up 2 feet of real estate, I got to get that back. Or else that guy's going to be harder to take down, right? So you always got to move forward. You got to keep moving. And I had some sparring partners, Bigfoot Johnson, Too Tall. I mean, a lot of crazy guys that I used to go through. See, I was like this sensitive guy, and so they always had me in there with tough guys, wanting me to work as hard as I can. And so it cost me a lot of money because you got to pay for them to fly in and fly out and pay them, right? But there's one guy, it's hard to remember the names, but there was one big dude, man. He was like, but you tame him. It's called a taming round. You ever hear that? You straighten his shit out, bro. Come on. Stop playing with me, bro. Look, say something to me. Down goes Tommy. Down goes Tommy. Gotta turn it on. Get in the camera. Look at that good looking guy. Get off.
Okay. When I first met you, you had an organization called FISC,
Yes.
in which you tried to help retired boxers.
Great.
What do you tell me about
Thank you.
what happened to boxers if they don't win a $10 million purse?
Right. Well, the problem in boxing is that the problem with boxing is they don't train you to keep your money because they want to keep you fighting. Because if you don't fight, they don't make no money, the promoters and the managers, right? And so I was getting out of the game, and I figured I've seen so many guys, everyone makes a lot of money, but they are piss poor when it's over. 99% of the fighters end up broke. And so I took it upon myself and my wife, who's a NYU graduate. It's a great cause. And we formed a bunch of great people to come together to help these guys. And what we were doing was fundraisers, cigar nights, golf tournaments, boxing matches, and raising money for these guys to come in. And we tried for so long. We have, I bring a lot of my celebrity friends in, and then I'd have to go to their events. And before you know, we were never home. And what happened? We found that fighters didn't really want to go to school. They wanted to get the money. Just as like tell a story about just putting a Band-Aid on the problem, right? You got to dig into the hole and clean it out before it's going to heal. And the assortment of children's, wives, divorces, not job ready. We used to get them different kinds of clothing and stuff. But basically, I remember we had Ivan Barkley, who's a great champ, is a great friend of mine today. We sent him on a job for Otis Elevator, right? A great job, great company. He drove around in a taxi cab and sent me a $400 bill, said he couldn't find the place. Those kinds of things happen. They play the game with you. They try and get over. And you got to realize that there's no getting over anymore. This is our life now. I got to figure. I have a daughter who's a great artist. She's a great dancer. She can fight. She's a puncher. She's an artist. She does makeup, and she's in her last year of college, and she doesn't know what to do, and it's producing a lot of anxiety. And different people get it at different times. But in the fight game, that rent comes up awful fast. That insurance bill comes up awful fast. The car payments. And these guys were never taught how to save their money or to turn that page and find out what's next for them. And that's something that's got to happen. I often thought if they took $1 from every ticket that was purchased for a fight, whether HBO or Showtime or the Zone, and put it in the foundation, it would solve the problem. But nobody wants to go there because fighters are independent contractors. They set that up early on so they would be not obligated to work that out. Yes,
No, we're done. We're done.
we're done.
Yeah.
Is that the guy?
This was a wonderful speech.
Very joyful talk. I'd like to give you the certification of appreciation. As you notice, there's an orchard on the left-hand side. Orchard was adopted as a symbol of the old guard because it was the Summit was the capital of the East when the old guard were formed in 1930, the year you were born.
Oh, he's a real comedian, this guy.
Jay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you.
And what?
Oh, I thought, yes, we are finished. We'd like to give you the old guard salute.